Biomed Nexus Daily Updates. Your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. TLDR Vertex agreed to buy Crinetics Pharmaceuticals for about $10 or $85 a share. It adds the approved acromegaly drug Palsonify and a Phase 3 candidate for congenital adrenal hyperplasia, pushing Vertex beyond cystic fibrosis and sickle cell into endocrinology. Crinetics shares jumped 99% to around $83.64. It is the fourth biopharma deal this year with at least $10 in guaranteed proceeds, already matching all of 2025. In an awkward bit of timing, Vera Therapeutics beat Vertex to market this week as the FDA approved its Trutacna, the first dual BAFF and APRIL inhibitor for IgA nephropathy, giving Vera a roughly 5-month head start on Vertex's rival drug. Kylera's obesity pill hit its mark in a late-stage trial in China, adding another oral contender to the GLP-1 race. Trump officials pressed pharma leaders to bring generic drug production back to the US in a private White House meeting. Executive takeaway Vertex has spent years trying to become something more than a cystic fibrosis company, and today it's spent $10 to get there faster. Buying Crinetics brings in Palsonify, an approved oral drug for acromegaly, and atumelnant, a Phase 3 candidate for congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Both are endocrine disorders, a therapeutic area Vertex has not played in before. The logic is diversification. Vertex's cystic fibrosis franchise is a fortress, but it is one franchise and the company has been methodically buying and building its way into pain, kidney disease, and cell therapy for type 1 diabetes. Endocrinology is the next leg. At $85 a share and roughly $10, this is the fourth deal this year to clear $10 in guaranteed proceeds, which by itself matches the entire 2025 count. The M&A wave we have tracked all year is not slowing, it is broadening across buyers and therapeutic areas. The irony worth savoring is the timing. The same week, Vertex is buying its way into endocrinology. It got beaten to market in one of the areas it was already chasing. The FDA approved Vera Therapeutics' Trutacna for IgA nephropathy, a serious kidney disease, and Vera's drug is the first dual BAFF and APRIL inhibitor across the finish line. Vertex has its own drug for the same disease coming behind it, but Vera now has roughly a 5-month head start in the first mover story. In a field where the two mechanisms look similar, that lead matters. It is a reminder that even a company as well run as Vertex cannot buy its way out of losing a race it was already in. One more thread to keep warm. Kylera, the obesity company built around assets licensed out of China, reported a Phase 3 win for its oral obesity drug in a China trial. It sits right at the intersection of the two biggest stories we track, the GLP-1 land grab and the China pipeline that Washington is now scrutinizing ahead of next week's July 17th deadline. More on that below. Read full analysis. M&A Vertex paid $10 to become an endocrinology company, not just a cystic fibrosis one. VRTX, CRNX Vertex agreed to acquire Crinetics Pharmaceuticals for about $10 or $85 per share in cash, according to BioWorld and the Pharma Letter. Crinetics shares rocketed 99% to around $80.64 on the news. The deal brings Vertex two endocrine assets, Palsonify, an approved oral drug for acromegaly, and atumelnant, a Phase 3 candidate for congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Both treat hormone disorders, a new area for a company defined by its cystic fibrosis franchise. This is the fourth biopharma M&A of 2026 with at least $10 in guaranteed proceeds, a group that already matches the full 2025 tally and includes GSK and Nuvalent, AbbVie and Apogee, and Merck KGaA and Biotechne. Vertex has been diversifying deliberately into pain with its approved non-opioid JERN-AVX, kidney disease, and type 1 diabetes cell therapy. Endocrinology is the newest addition, and at this price it is a serious bet. Regulatory Vera beat Vertex to market in kidney disease, and first mover status is the whole prize. Vera, VRTX, the FDA granted accelerated approval to Vera Therapeutics, Trutacna, atacicept, for IgA nephropathy, clearing it to reduce proteinuria in adults with primary IgAN at risk of progression, according to BioWorld and the Pharma letter. It is the first dual BAFF and APRIL inhibitor approved for the disease, dosed once weekly by auto-injector. The competitive angle is what makes this notable. Vera now has a roughly 5-month head start on Vertex's rival drug in the same disease with a similar mechanism. IgA nephropathy is a progressive kidney disease that can lead to failure, and the treatment field has heated up fast. In a race between two similar mechanisms, being first shapes prescriber habits and payer formularies before the competitor arrives. Vera just banked that advantage. GLP-1 and China Kailera's obesity pill worked in China, putting it at the crossroads of the year's two biggest stories. Kailera Therapeutics said its oral obesity drug succeeded in a late-stage trial in China, according to Biopharma Dive. Kailera is the company built around obesity assets licensed out of China's Hengrui, and it raised one of the year's largest biotech IPOs. A positive Phase 3 keeps it in the oral obesity race alongside Lilly's Foundayo and Novo's oral Wegovy. But the more interesting angle is where this sits. Kailera is simultaneously a GLP-1 story and a China licensing story, the two threads that have dominated 2026. With the House Select Committee's July 17th deadline for the 5 big pharmas now 8 days out, Kailera is a live example of why the industry is not walking away from Chinese science. The assets are good, and the data keep reading out positive. Washington's scrutiny does not change that math, it just raises the cost of acting on it. Policy. The White House told pharma to bring generic manufacturing home. Trump administration officials pressed pharmaceutical leaders to reshore production of essential medicines in a private meeting at the Eisenhower Executive Office building, according to State. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and HHS Chief Counsel Chris Klomp delivered the message. Make more drugs in the US, or at least closer to home. It fits the broader push we have tracked through the Section 232 tariffs and the onshoring commitments from Lilly, Regeneron, Hikma, and others. The hard part is generics. Most essential generic medicines are made cheaply overseas because the margins are razor-thin, and no amount of White House urging changes the economics without either subsidies or higher prices. Expect a lot of supportive statements and very slow actual movement. CNS Compass added durable Phase 3 data for its psilocybin depression drug. CMPS Compass Pathways reported 26-week results from the second part of its Phase 3 COMP06 trial of COMP360. Its synthetic psilocybin formulation for treatment-resistant depression, confirming what the company called a rapid onset and durable profile, according to the Pharma letter. Psychedelic medicine has been a volatile field, with high scientific promise tangled up in tricky trial design and an uncertain regulatory path. Durable Phase 3 data help the case that psilocybin can be a real treatment rather than a research curiosity. It also lands in a depression market that just saw Definium win and Neumora lose, underscoring how much appetite there is for something that actually works in hard-to-treat patients. Coming up, July 17th, the 5 named pharmas respond to the House China Trials probe. Late July, FDA Advisory Committee expected on Capricor's Duramiocel. July 31st, Section 232 pharma tariffs effective for large companies. August 2026, Replimune RP1 FDA response, imminent. Revolution Medicines, CNPV filing, Lilly Foundayo T2D filing, read, full analysis Biomed, Nexus Pro, institutional intelligence brief, Vertex's diversification, Machine Vertex is executing one of the most deliberate diversification strategies in large biotech, and the Crinetics deal is the latest move. The company built an almost unassailable cystic fibrosis franchise, then faced the question every single franchise company faces: what happens when that is your whole business? Its answer has been to methodically enter adjacent areas where its biology and commercial muscle transfer. Non-opioid pain with Ertex now approved, kidney disease, including its own IgA nephropathy program, type 1 diabetes with a cell therapy aiming for a functional cure, sickle cell and beta thalassemia through Casgevy, the CRISPR therapy it developed with partners, and now endocrinology through Crinetics, bringing an approved acromegaly drug and a phase 3 congenital adrenal hyperplasia candidate. The pattern is consistent. Vertex targets serious diseases with clear biology, defined patient populations, and inadequate current treatment. It prefers to enter with either an approved or near-approved asset rather than early science, which is why it pays up for de-risked companies. Crinetics fits perfectly. Palsonify is already approved, atumelnant is in phase 3, and both address endocrine disorders where patients have few good options. The risk is execution across too many fronts. Vertex is now commercializing or developing in cystic fibrosis, pain, kidney disease, diabetes, blood disorders, and endocrinology simultaneously. That is a lot of therapeutic areas for one commercial organization to master, each with different prescribers and payer dynamics. The bet is that disciplined selection and deep pockets beat focus. So far, the strategy is working, but the more franchises Vertex adds, the more the diversification that reduces franchise risk introduces execution risk in its place. Why 5 months matters in IgA nephropathy. Vera, beating Vertex to market by roughly 5 months in IgA nephropathy, is worth more than the calendar suggests. Here is the logic. The two drugs work through similar mechanisms, both hitting the BAFF and APRIL pathways that drive the antibody production behind the disease. When two therapies are mechanistically similar, the clinical differentiation is often modest, which means the commercial battle is won on other factors: which drug prescribers get comfortable with first, which one lands on formularies, and which one accumulates real-world experience. First movers in these situations build durable advantages. Nephrologists who start patients on Trutacna and see good results have little reason to switch when a similar drug arrives months later. Payers who negotiate Vera onto formulary may be slow to add a second similar agent. And Vera gets 5 months of prescriber relationships, patient data, and market education before Vertex can respond. Vertex has advantages of its own, a bigger commercial organization and deeper pockets, and IgA nephropathy is a large enough market to support more than one drug. But Vera just converted a PDUFA date into a real strategic lead. In a mechanistically crowded field, that lead is the prize, and it is why the timing of this week, with Vertex spending 10 Bs on endocrinology while losing a step in kidney disease, is such a sharp illustration of how hard it is to win on every front at once. Kylera, China, and the July 17th calculus. Kylera's phase 3 obesity win in China is a small story with an outsized illustrative value. It shows exactly why the industry is not going to walk away from Chinese science despite the political heat. Kylera exists because its founders licensed promising obesity assets out of Hengrui, one of China's most productive drug makers, and built a company around them. That company then raised one of the year's biggest IPOs. Now the lead asset is delivering positive phase 3 data. The entire arc from Chinese science to Western capital to clinical validation is the model that produced 138 B in licensing deals last year, and it keeps working. This is the backdrop for the July 17th deadline. The House Select Committee wants Merck, AbbVie, Lilly, Pfizer, and BMS to account for their China trials, and the Biotech Investment National Security Act would add Treasury review to licensing deals. But every positive China readout, like Kylera's today, strengthens the industry's underlying argument. The science is real, the patients benefit, and walking away means ceding an advantage to competitors who will not. Our read is unchanged. The 5 will respond carefully and on time, avoid signing anything conspicuous before the deadline, and quietly continue their China strategies afterward at a higher political cost. Kylera is the reason. When the assets keep working, the friction Washington adds gets priced in and paid, not avoided. The deal flow bends around the obstacle rather than stopping. Vertex spent $10 billion to become an endocrinology company and got beaten to market in kidney disease the same week. Kylera's China win keeps the GLP-1 and China threads tangled together, and the White House wants generics made at home. 8 days to the July 17th deadline. What are you watching? Reply to this email. Visit the Pro Hub read. Full article. Is your company listed in the Biomed Nexus directory? 2,104 companies across 14 categories. Claim or upgrade your listing. Sponsorship slots for 2026 are limited. See packages and pricing. New Biomed Nexus signals. Weekly sales intelligence for life sciences BD teams. Learn more.